It certainly was good in terms of my intellectual growth and exposure, and really, what does it look and feel like to be involved in the people who are sort of breaking the ground in the discipline, right? So Quine, who is the country's foremost philosopher of math, right, and is a mathematical logician, and so, you know, he's attracted people, young people who are, you know, focused on this area. So being privy to the kind of conversation that goes on, right, in the classrooms, right, you know, what this looks and feels like. But also sitting there in Widener in the stacks, just going through all those, what it means to, you know, to trace down ideas down through the centuries, you know, and look at the books and the writings, right? It really opened up a way of thinking and a way of approaching issues and ideas that that I've really, I think, traded on, right? That have been very important across all of my life, the work of my life. What Harvard didn't provide was what I thought I needed, which was the idea of a credential that you can do this level of the work. And so that didn't happen. Harvard didn't provide that. And well, what happened was my roommate in my first year there told me that one of the professors was worried about calling on me in class, right? And so then it means that, well, you can't, Harvard's not the place then. In this particular situation where I was there, I wasn't going to get that piece of what I was looking for. Because if he's worried about calling on me in class, then it means we're back into the same issue that whether you're being black means that there's some issue about whether you can handle it, right? So you can't, because what I was looking for was, here's a place where the same thing that Bill was looking for, right, when he's entering this contest, right?
That you're judged as an equal.
Yeah, well, you're judged, and he wanted to be judged on the basis of his work, right? But of course, you're sitting in class, you can't hide the fact of who you are. So the question is Harvard a place where sitting in class, it doesn't matter, but it mattered. Right.
And so this particular professor was worried about calling on you because you were black and you could, and that meant that you might not be able to handle, and he didn't want to publicly humiliate you, or he didn't want to...
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's the idea, that it would be humiliating, but whatever it is, once it's there, then it's not the playing field that you're looking for.
Right. And this one professor, it was that
just
one.
One, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was, for me, it meant that, well, you can't get that level of kind of a stamp here, right? But the other thing was that it was only after I got into the movement that I understood what the limitations of Harvard were, right, and the ways in which you couldn't understand the country through the education at Harvard, right?
Why not?
Because what's going on in the country isn't is camouflaged, right, at the level of the universities of the country. I mean, in other words, I think the penetration into the lives of the people in Mississippi, Amzie Moore particularly, but then also Ella before Amzie, gives a different lens to look at the country, right? It's a lens that you can't get from the institutions that I was moving through, right? Being educated in the country, right? Just a way of thinking and looking and understanding the country that isn't available, you know, in those institutions, right? So that was a big awakening, right? You know, for me, and you know, so in some sense, the issue my father was grappling with, this damn fool thing called an education, right? So what actually is it, and how do you actually come to understand what it is, right? What you've been educated into.